All right, so we are here today to discuss tech debt and prioritization and kind of allocation during milestone planning. And here with Nicole, who expressed in the product management meeting recently how she's doing it and how she has got to a good system with her team. And so I wanted to chat more with Nicole, understand how she arrived where she is, how it's working, and how a similar approach might be applicable to other PMs and their teams. So, Nicole, why don't we take a go back to the beginning and kind of explain to us how you've gotten to where you are today, and maybe some of the learnings you've had along the way to where you are.
Yeah, I'll kind of explain today because we've got an interesting setup that happens to work for my team, and then we can kind of dig into the different parts and how we got there. We actually take one of the engineers each release and set them as reaction rotation, which we defined in our handbook page. And that person actually is responsible for looking at all of the incoming security items, bugs, anything that is found by quality, and reviewing it, and then adding priority labels. And for bugs, we use the published labels, and then internally we kind of worked out, what is a priority 1 tech debt versus a priority 2, so on and so forth, because the engineers are in the code base. They kind of know the severity and priority of things more than I think I ever could. And so a lot of times they'll tag it, and if they have a question like, have you heard customers complaining about X, because that's what this would cause, they'll tag me in, but most of the time they handle it on their own. And then Olivier and I, my engineering manager, as we approach each upcoming milestone, we look at what was our average number of points that we did previously, how many people are on vacation, so knock out some points if there's a bunch of people on vacation. And then I take half of those points and I try and put it as feature work. And then the other half, I just pick off what the engineers have done. Like, they tagged these ones P1, I grab it. If there's too many P1s to fit, I'll actually ask, like, hey, we have 10, I can only have 5. Which 5 would y'all prefer I put in? So I've just outsourced that work to the people who I think it impacts the most, of what of these things is the most painful to you. And that's what I'm going to bring in. And kind of how I arrived at 50-50 is I looked at historically how much backlog tech debt I had and how many backlog bugs that I had that were missing their SLA or SLO. And I figured out, like, okay, to burn that down, I have to be doing at least this many. And so I reverse engineered myself into the 50-50. So that may change over time, but right now 50-50 has been working for us. We've been hitting the SLOs on all of our P1, P2 bugs. We've been addressing all the security concerns in a timely fashion. And, so everything's working out. We'll reevaluate if we need to. And then how we decided one person for the reaction rotation was actually, before, whoever was free would kind of jump on and try and self-delegate, who's going to look at this quality thing that came in. And either sometimes we'd miss it and it wouldn't get triaged, or I'd try and triage it. And then everyone would be like, why did you triage it that way? And I'm like, I guessed. And obviously I guessed poorly. And other times people would, be like, hey, this one I really think needs to get worked on, but you haven't put it in the next upcoming release. And at that point, talk to the engineers, and they were kind of concerned, like, we don't know exactly how you prioritize these or how they work their way in. And I'm like, okay, well, let's make it super easy. Let's have one person be in charge so that we don't miss things and that it's consistent. And they can escalate to me for the upcoming release, which ones they want to get put in. So this way it's not like it goes into some black hole and you don't know what happened. And that's been working out for us. It took us a while to get there, but now that we're there, it's kind of been working out.
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach. And so just a couple questions that I'd be curious about. So the person who's on this rotation, are they looking at only items that are more like back-end technical, or like front-end issues, or things coming to you as well? Or
anything that comes in, they get to, like, if a support request comes in, they're literally the reactionary person. So they're trying to reduce the distraction or interrupts for everybody else.
Right.
So if I need somebody to go answer a silly question for me, that's who I'll go to. It's like, oh, somebody asked me about this. Is this even possible? And they'll be like, they'll dig into the code and let me know. So that's like the on-call person, except not after hours for
Right.
the month.
Interesting. So have you found as a maybe a side effect of this that your engineers have a better understanding of the users and the problem space, and are they able to, because of that, have more constructive conversations with you as you're doing like feature related items as well?
I don't think so because they all were very involved. And so I
Okay.
don't think that's, but what has happened is I think they've worked on areas of the code that they haven't necessarily gotten to work on before. So people's understanding of maybe the nuances of some of the older, weirder parts of our code has grown because
That's
they
good.
have to suddenly dig into an area where before, oh, so and so always jumps on those.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you were to try to lay out maybe a playbook for other teams in a situation somewhere on this journey to getting to a better place of working collaboratively with their engineering partners to prioritize, efforts related to tech debt or other engineering things, where would you start? Would be like maybe the first things you'd recommend for PMs to do with their engineering managers?
So I think the first thing that I tried doing, which I still do for larger items, which we can talk about my engineer's choice milestones if we want to next, because that's like when we tackle a really big item. But generally, I would take my upcoming release and I'd prep my issue. And I'd say, here's the 2 or 3 features I want to work on. And I kind of want some bugs in there. And then I would put it into the Slack channel and be like, okay, peeps, what bugs have you seen? Toss in some ideas. And people would like put in comments like, this one keeps coming up, or this particular issue keeps coming up. And I think it's related to this. So if we fix this, we may stop seeing this. And so people would kind of like sprinkle in suggestions. But I think that wasn't very efficient because it was, if somebody had happened to read or see that issue recently, it was top of mind, but it wasn't necessarily like an ongoing curation of tagging things. And so it
Yeah.
was a little hit and miss, but that definitely was a good place to start because when I looked into the backlog, which is large and scary, like, where do you start? And
Right.
it was so much easier to start with, okay, what have you seen recently that aggravated you? And ideas just suddenly pop up into the issue.
Awesome. Yeah. And so then over time, hopefully the fires get put out, and then you can start to maybe spend more time thinking more strategically about the tech that you have as you've accumulated over time. And I really like the kind of way that you approach the allocation being, well, all right, we have this much come in every milestone. We have this much addressed every milestone, and figuring out what
How do
that
we,
balance needs to be to make sure that
yep.
you're paying it down and not, accumulating a little more each milestone instead of a little less. So I think that's a really smart way to approach it as well, and that other teams could apply that same kind of approach for.
And this way, it's not a fixed number. It's just what do you get in each month? And in order to stop putting things into the backlog, at least allot that much.
Yeah. And do you find that ever, are you consistent with that each milestone? Are there milestones where it's like, well, we really have like a hard date we're trying to hit for this feature, so we're going to actually do like 80% feature work and only 20% tech debt? Are you pretty good at sticking with it?
So we definitely, we've been doing rapid action for 2 or 3 releases now. So everything went out the window. And as a result, like for the next one release, I'm just like, these bugs are all like past us hello. We've got to just do these things. And so there's definitely the occasional time where it's like, okay, because of X, we need to do Y instead. And so it's definitely not a hard and fast rule. It's just that's what I try to plan for. And then life obviously sometimes happens. But to head off major fires, what I've tried to do before and it didn't work, so I'm going bigger, is I used to say, okay, what's the biggest area of tech debt and how can we put that on as like a mini project that we do over the course of 3 or 4 releases, and we just keep that thread going.
Yep.
And that was okay, but then it would always get stomped on by bugs or other fires popping up. And so finally I was just like, I trust you all. I'm giving you 2 releases to do whatever you want. And please go, everyone talk together and then come up and tell me what it is you want to do, why you want to do it, and is it going to make your developing experience better? Is it going to make your troubleshooting experience better? Like, what improvement are we going to see as a result? And so everybody kind of went away, chit chatted, and then they came back and said they wanted to actually improve our testing. And it would, the goal was to give them more rapid feedback as they were developing to find out if there was an issue. Also make it easier for community contributors to test their code before they were contributing in. And then also we get a bunch of like weird intermittent failures. And so adding some more CLI tests apparently might help find the source of that. And so by just giving them like, I am setting 2 milestones out of the year for you to do whatever it is you feel is in the best interest of our team, they really got creative. And I wouldn't have thought of that as like a major problem. And then they came to me and they said the values, and I'm like, I agree with you. This sounds amazing, and it's going to be definitely great for us. And so, yeah, let's totally do it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great one. That's something that I've used in the past as well, like around, let's say December, when a lot of people are kind of coming and going. It's hard to really plan too much. Let's use this to just pay down a bunch of tech debt. And I think it's a good technique. Well, I want to be conscious of time and not make this video too long for folks watching. So Nicole, thank you very much for walking us all through your process there and how you got to it. I think it's a great kind of boilerplate format to follow for others looking to get to a better place with their tech debt. And I thank you for everything you've provided today. Thank you.
Thanks. Hopefully people find it useful.
Yeah, awesome.